What happens when Hollywood's most guarded leading man walks onto a daytime talk show known for sharp tongues, hot takes, and zero patience for silence, and suddenly finds himself pushed into a corner he never agreed to stand in? Before we go any further, if you love explosive celebrity moments, raw tension, and stories that pull you inside the room, subscribe to Stage View right now, hit that like button, and drop a comment because this one spirals fast. The applause begins before Bradley Cooper even appears. It rolls across the studio like a wave, warm, practiced, familiar. The kind of applause that sounds safe. Cameras glide over faces in the audience, smiles, phones raised, whispers shared. Someone mouths his name. Someone else grips their coffee cup a little tighter. He steps out from behind the curtain wearing a neutral smile, tailored jacket, eyes scanning the room like he's already measuring the air pressure. Bradley Cooper has walked into louder rooms than this. Red carpets, award shows, stadium premieres. But something about this space feels different. Daytime lighting is unforgiving. There's nowhere to hide when the lights are this bright and the chairs are this close. Joy Behar leans back in her seat, arms crossed loosely, lips curved into a half-smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. She's been doing this too long to be impressed by applause alone. To her left, the other hosts exchange glances. The subtle kind that only people who've survived on-air battles together can read. This isn't hostility. Not yet. It's anticipation. Bradley sits. The applause fades. The room exhales. Joy tilts her head. Bradley Cooper, she says, drawing out the syllables like she's tasting them. Actor. Director. Musician. Heartthrob. A beat. Busy man. He chuckles politely. I try to stay out of trouble. A ripple of laughter moves through the audience. Joy raises an eyebrow. Do you? Another laugh, louder this time. Bradley smiles again, but something flickers behind his eyes, calculation. He knows the rhythm of interviews. Setup. Charm. Safe jokes. Move on. He's done this dance 1,000 times. But Joy doesn't move on. You've been everywhere lately, she continues. Films, press tours, award conversations. And yet, you're also known for being extremely private. Bradley nods. I value that, yeah. It keeps me grounded. Joy leans forward now. The shift is subtle, but the energy in the room changes. Even the audience senses it. Someone stops clapping mid-motion. Grounded, she repeats. Or protected? The word hangs in the air longer than it should. Bradley laughs softly, but it's thinner now. I'm not sure what you mean. Joy smiles, but it's sharp. I mean, you talk a lot about pressure. About fame being overwhelming. About the cost of success. She gestures vaguely. But you still choose it. Again and again. One of the hosts clears her throat. Another shifts in her seat. Bradley inhales. I don't think choosing my work means I'm choosing every consequence that comes with it. Joy doesn't blink. But isn't that exactly what it means? The audience murmurs. A few heads nod. Others frown. Bradley straightens in his chair. I think it means I'm human. The word lands harder than he intends. Joy's eyes lock onto his. So are the people watching you. The ones who don't get to opt out. The ones who see celebrities complain about pressure while living lives most people can't imagine. There it is. The line. The shift from friendly banter to something sharper, more personal. Bradley feels it. The cameras feel it. The audience feels it. He pauses, choosing his words carefully. I'm not complaining, he says. I'm being honest. Joy lets out a short laugh. Honest. Or curated. A hush falls over the studio. Even the crew behind the cameras goes still. Bradley's jaw tightens. For a split second, the polished interview mask slips, revealing something raw underneath. I don't think it's fair to tell someone how they're allowed to feel, he says. Joy tilts her head again, studying him. I'm not telling you how to feel. I'm asking why you expect sympathy. That word, sympathy, it slices through the air. The audience reacts instantly, some applause, some gasps, some uneasy shifting. Bradley hears it all, but his focus narrows. His heart rate ticks up. He didn't come here for this. He came to talk about his work. About craft. About art. I don't expect sympathy, he says more firmly now. I expect understanding. Joy leans back, arms crossing again. From who? From anyone willing to listen without assuming. The tension is thick enough to touch. One of the hosts tries to soften it. I think what Bradley's saying is. Joy raises a hand, cutting her off without looking. Her eyes stay on Bradley. No, let him answer. Bradley exhales slowly. Fame isn't armor, he says. It's exposure. And the higher you go, the less protected you actually are. Joy smiles faintly. Yet here you are, on television, talking about it. A few people in the audience clap, unsure whether they're agreeing or just filling the silence. Bradley's voice drops. Because silence doesn't protect you either. Something shifts then. Not just tension, recognition. The audience leans in. Joy's expression softens for half a second before hardening again. You know, she says, a lot of people would love to have your problems. Bradley nods. I know. Then why talk about them? He looks at her, really looks at her, and for the first time his voice carries something unguarded. Because pretending they don't exist doesn't make them disappear. The room goes quiet. No applause. No laughter. Just the hum of studio lights and the low buzz of something unresolved. Joy studies him, tapping her fingers lightly against the table. You're very good with words, she says. That's part of your job. Bradley doesn't smile this time. So is listening. A murmur ripples through the audience. Someone whispers, "Oh." Joy's lips press together. The hosts exchange another glance. This wasn't supposed to go here. Not this fast. Joy inhales. Let me ask you something directly, she says. Do you think celebrities are out of touch? Bradley hesitates. The pause is long enough to feel dangerous. I think, he says slowly, anyone can become out of touch if they stop questioning themselves. Joy nods. Including you? Yes. The honesty disarms some of the room. A few people clap softly. Joy leans forward again, voice lower now. Then question this. When you talk about pressure, when you talk about pain, are you opening a conversation, or are you centering yourself in one that doesn't belong to you? The audience collectively inhales. Bradley's hands curl slightly in his lap. He feels heat rising in his chest, not anger exactly, but something close. Pain isn't a competition, he says. Acknowledging mine doesn't erase anyone else's. Joy raises an eyebrow. Tell that to people who feel invisible. The silence stretches. Cameras zoom in. The director senses gold. Bradley looks out at the audience. Faces of all ages. All backgrounds. He swallows. I'm not here to be a spokesperson, he says quietly. I'm here as a person. Joy's voice softens, but the edge remains. And people will judge you as one. I know. Another beat. Another stretch of silence. Joy sits back, exhaling. Well, she says, this is certainly more intense than I expected. A nervous laugh ripples through the crowd. Bradley lets out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Me too. But the moment doesn't resolve. It lingers. Suspended. Charged. The host to Joy's right finally jumps in, voice light but eyes alert. We're going to take a quick break, she says, clapping her hands once. When we come back, more with Bradley Cooper. The applause is scattered, uncertain. Bradley nods, forcing a polite smile as the cameras pull back. Joy adjusts her papers, her expression unreadable. As the lights dim slightly and the music swells, the audience buzzes. Not with excitement, but with tension. Phones are already out. Tweets are being typed. Opinions are forming in real time. Bradley sits there, staring ahead, knowing one thing for sure. This isn't over. Not even close. The music fades, but the tension doesn't. It just changes shape. Behind the smiles and studio polish, the air during the commercial break feels heavier, like everyone is suddenly aware they're standing too close to something volatile. Bradley Cooper keeps his posture still, hands folded, eyes unfocused as if he's staring through the set instead of at it. He can feel his pulse in his neck. Not panic, not fear, just that familiar, unwelcome buzz. The one that tells him he's no longer in control of the narrative. Joy Behar flips through her notes, but she isn't reading them. Her jaw tightens, then relaxes. She's replaying the exchange in her head, weighing it. She's been in moments like this before. Moments that explode. Moments that define an episode. She knows exactly how thin the line is between honest conversation and cultural flashpoint. One of the producers leans in from off-camera, voice low. We're live in 30. Bradley nods once without looking up. Joy glances sideways at him. You okay? She asks casually, almost offhand. He meets her eyes. For a split second, there's something unfiltered there. I'm fine, he says. Just trying to keep up. She gives a small, unreadable smile. Good. Because we're not done. The countdown hits 0. The lights surge back to full intensity, brighter than before. Applause rises again, louder this time, but it feels different, edgier. Charged. The audience knows they're about to witness something unscripted, something that might slip. The host's voice cuts through the noise. Welcome back. We're still here with Bradley Cooper. Bradley straightens, the practiced calm snapping back into place like armor. Joy sets her papers down deliberately, hands flat on the table. She doesn't waste time. You know, she begins, eyes on him. During the break, I was thinking about something you said. Bradley nods. Okay, you said pain isn't a competition. Yes, and intellectually I agree, Joy says. But emotionally, socially, that's not how it plays out. The audience quiets again. Someone in the front row leans forward, elbows on knees. When someone with power speaks about suffering, Joy continues, it tends to take up space. Space that others don't get. Bradley shifts in his seat. I understand that concern, he says. But I don't believe the solution is silence. Joy tilts her head. Then what is it? Context, he replies. And accountability. I can acknowledge my privilege and still be honest about my experience. Joy's eyes flicker. Can you? Yes. Because from where I sit, she says, voice steady, it sometimes feels like celebrities want empathy without discomfort. A murmur ripples through the crowd. Bradley exhales through his nose, controlled but tight. Discomfort is unavoidable, he says. This conversation proves that. Joy nods slowly. Fair. One of the other hosts jumps in, trying to widen the lens. Bradley, do you ever worry that sharing vulnerability might be misinterpreted? All the time, he answers immediately. But fear of misinterpretation can't be the reason you stop speaking. Joy interjects, sharper now. Unless your speaking drowns others out. Bradley looks at her. Or unless we assume there's only room for one voice. The audience reacts, half applause, half uneasy silence. The divide is visible now, almost physical. Some faces light up in agreement. Others harden. Joy leans forward, elbows on the table. You're very articulate, she says. That gives you power. Do you recognize that? I do. And do you ever consider using that power to step back instead of forward? Bradley pauses. This time the silence stretches longer. He can feel the cameras tightening on him, the weight of expectation pressing down. I think, he says slowly, stepping back and disappearing aren't the same thing. Joy's lips press into a thin line. To the people who never get invited into rooms like this, it might feel that way. The words land hard. Bradley glances briefly toward the audience, then back to Joy. I didn't invite myself here, he says, not defensively, but plainly. I was asked. A collective intake of breath. Joy raises her eyebrows. And you could have said no. I could have, he agrees. But then what? Another headline about the elusive actor who won't engage. Joy smiles, but there's no warmth in it. Engagement doesn't automatically mean depth. Bradley's voice tightens just a bit. Neither does dismissal. The audience reacts instantly, this time louder, more divided. Applause clashes with murmurs. Someone whistles. Someone else shakes their head. The host to Joy's left leans in. I think what's fascinating here is that we're watching two different expectations collide. Joy doesn't take her eyes off Bradley. Maybe. Or maybe we're watching someone used to pushback. Bradley stiffens. I'm very used to pushback, he says. I'm just not used to it being framed as moral failure. Joy's eyes sharpen. Is that how it feels? Yes. A beat. The room stills. Joy leans back slightly, studying him. Interesting. The word sounds less like curiosity and more like assessment. Let me ask you this, she says. When you talk about fame being suffocating, about pressure and anxiety, do you think that resonates with people who are struggling to survive? Bradley's jaw tightens. I don't expect it to resonate with everyone, but you put it out there anyway. Yes. Why? Because if it resonates with even one person who feels alone, he says quietly, then it matters. Joy scoffs softly. You really believe that? I do. And you don't see how that could come across as self-indulgent. Bradley's eyes flash. I see how it could be framed that way, he says. But I don't believe vulnerability should be reserved only for those deemed worthy of it. The audience reacts again. This time louder applause from one side, audible discomfort from the other. Joy exhales sharply, leaning back. You're making this very philosophical. Bradley shrugs slightly. You asked a philosophical question. She smiles despite herself, but it fades quickly. Okay, let's make it practical. She turns slightly toward the audience. How many of you feel like celebrities complaining about fame feels out of touch? Hands go up. Not all, but enough. Bradley watches, face unreadable. Joy turns back to him. See. He nods. I do. And I think that reaction deserves examination, he says. Not dismissal. Joy's voice hardens. By who? By all of us, he replies. Including me. The crowd quiets again. The emotional temperature has shifted. Not just confrontational now, but reflective. The clash has cracked something open. Joy taps her fingers against the table. You know, she says, I've been doing this a long time. I know, Bradley says, genuine respect in his tone. I've seen celebrities come on this show and crumble when they're challenged, Joy continues. Or get angry. Or shut down. And you're not doing that, she admits. You're pushing back. Bradley nods. Because I feel pushed. A soft laugh escapes Joy despite herself. Fair enough. One of the hosts jumps in again, sensing a momentary thaw. Do you think this tension comes from unrealistic expectations on both sides? Joy glances at her, then back at Bradley. Maybe. Or maybe it comes from the fact that fame changes the rules. Bradley responds immediately. It changes them, he agrees. But it doesn't erase responsibility. Joy's eyes narrow. Responsibility to who? To speak carefully, he says. To listen. To learn. But not to erase myself. The audience reacts, this time with sustained applause. Even some of the skeptics clap, slower, more thoughtful. Joy watches him, something like respect flickering beneath the surface. You're very convinced of your position. Bradley meets her gaze. I'm convinced that pretending I don't struggle would be dishonest. Joy leans forward again, voice quieter now. And you don't think honesty can be harmful? I think dishonesty is worse. Another pause. Another charged silence. Joy exhales, sitting back. You're not wrong, she says slowly. But you're not entirely right either. Bradley nods. I wouldn't expect to be. The audience laughs, breaking the tension just a little. Joy smiles, but it's tired now. This is why these conversations matter, she says, half to him, half to the room. They're messy. Yes, Bradley agrees. They are. The host glances toward the camera, signaling time. We're almost out, she says. Bradley, final thought? Bradley hesitates, then speaks carefully. I think fame magnifies everything, he says. The good, the bad, the misunderstandings. And if we're going to talk about it, we should do so with nuance, not assumptions. Joy nods slowly. And I think, she adds, that nuance includes recognizing when your voice is louder than others. Bradley inclines his head. That's fair. The applause that follows is longer, steadier. Less explosive, more contemplative. But as the cameras pull back and the segment wraps, one thing is clear to everyone in the room. This wasn't a resolution. It was a fracture. And outside these walls, millions of people are about to decide which side they're on. The applause fades, but the silence that replaces it feels louder than anything that came before. Bradley Cooper remains seated as the cameras shift, the hosts shuffling papers, the show pretending, just for a moment, that the tension has settled. It hasn't. It's sitting there between them, invisible but heavy, like a question no one wants to ask out loud. Joy Behar breaks the quiet first. You know, she says, her voice calmer now but edged with something unresolved. People are already reacting to this. I can feel it. Bradley lets out a slow breath. So can I. The host beside Joy glances toward the audience, where murmurs are already bubbling again. Phones glow in laps. Someone in the third row whispers urgently to the person next to them, eyes wide. Joy turns slightly toward Bradley, lowering her voice, but the microphones catch everything. You understand why this hits a nerve, right? I do, he says. But understanding doesn't mean agreeing with the framing. Joy smiles faintly. Still pushing. Bradley meets her gaze. Still listening. That earns a small reaction, soft laughter, a few claps. But beneath it, the divide remains. Joy leans forward again, less confrontational, more probing. Let me ask you something personal, she says. Do you ever feel trapped by the version of yourself the public expects? Bradley blinks. The question lands differently. Not as an accusation. As an invitation. Yes, he says after a beat. All the time. The audience quiets instantly. Explain that, Joy says. Bradley's shoulders drop just a fraction. People think fame gives you freedom, he begins. But it also freezes you in time. You become an idea. And if you step outside that idea, you're punished for it. Joy nods slowly. That's not unique to celebrities. No, he agrees. But it's amplified. Joy taps her pen against the table. So when people hear you talk about pressure, They're not just hearing your pain, she says. They're hearing entitlement. Bradley exhales. And that's the part one struggle with, he admits. Because it assumes pain has prerequisites. The audience murmurs again, some agreement, some resistance. Joy's tone sharpens slightly. Or it assumes awareness. Bradley looks at her. Of what? Of how it sounds, she replies. Of the imbalance. Bradley nods slowly. I think awareness is a practice, he says. Not a switch you flip. Joy studies him. You're asking for patience. I'm asking for space, he replies. To be imperfect in public. That line hits. The audience reacts audibly, gasps, claps, murmurs colliding. Joy leans back, arms crossing. Public imperfection is a luxury, she says. Bradley's jaw tightens. Or a risk. Joy raises an eyebrow. Is it really? Bradley doesn't answer immediately. He looks out at the audience again, at the faces watching him not as a character, not as a role, but as a man being tested. Yes, he says finally. Because once you show vulnerability, people decide whether it's acceptable. And if it's not, they turn it into a weapon. The room stills. Joy's expression shifts, less combative now, more contemplative. You think that's happening here? I think it could, he says honestly. Joy exhales, glancing down at her notes. That's not my intention. I know, Bradley says quickly, but intention doesn't control impact. A quiet escapes Joy's lips. She nods. One of the other hosts leans in, sensing the moment. Joy, do you think there's a double standard in how we treat vulnerability? Joy considers it. I think there's a hierarchy, she says. And the higher you are, the less room people think you deserve to struggle. Bradley looks at her. That's exactly it. Joy's eyes meet his. For the first time, there's no edge. Just acknowledgement. But, she adds, raising a finger, there's also accountability. When you speak, millions listen. That carries weight. Bradley nods. I don't deny that. Then maybe, Joy says, the frustration isn't that you speak, it's how. Bradley frowns slightly. How would you suggest? Joy pauses. The question catches her off guard. I don't have a perfect answer, she admits. But maybe less this is hard for me, and more I know this is easier for me than most. Bradley absorbs that. That's fair, he says. And I try to say that. Joy tilts her head. Try harder. The audience reacts, laughter, applause, tension breaking just a bit. Bradley smiles faintly. I will. Another host jumps in, voice warm. This is actually one of the most honest conversations we've had in a while. Joy nods. Because it's uncomfortable. Bradley adds, because it's real. Joy looks at him, studying his face. You're not backing down. No, he says. But I'm not attacking either. Joy smiles slowly. Good. The audience laughs again, lighter now, but the undercurrent remains. Joy glances toward the camera. You know what's going to happen after this airs, right? Bradley nods. People will pick sides. And they'll be loud, she says. Yes. And they'll reduce this to clips, Joy adds. Sound bites. Headlines. Bradley's smile fades. That's what worries me. Joy looks at him, genuinely now. Then why do it? He hesitates. The room leans in. Because if we stop having these conversations just because they'll be misused, he says, then we let the loudest voices decide what's allowed. The audience breaks into applause, stronger this time, more unified. Joy nods slowly. I can respect that. Bradley meets her gaze. That means a lot. Joy straightens in her seat. Don't get used to it. Laughter ripples through the studio. The host signals again. Time is almost up. Final 30 seconds, she says. Joy turns to Bradley. Last word, she offers. Bradley takes a breath. I don't want sympathy, he says. I want complexity. I want room for contradictions. Fame doesn't erase humanity. It complicates it. Joy listens, then nods. And I want awareness, she says. That when you speak, you don't just speak for yourself. Bradley inclines his head. That's fair. The applause that follows is loud, sustained, layered with relief and unresolved emotion. As the cameras pull back and the show moves on, Bradley stands, shaking hands with the hosts. Joy grips his hand a little longer than expected. Good conversation, she says quietly. He nods. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. But as Bradley walks off stage, past the bright lights and into the shadows beyond the set, he can already sense it. The storm forming outside these walls. Clips being cut. Tweets being drafted. Opinions solidifying. This moment won't stay here. It's about to explode. The lights dim, The applause dissolves into background noise, and the studio moves on, as television always does, but the moment refuses to stay contained. Within minutes of the broadcast ending, the aftermath begins. In the hallway outside the set, Bradley Cooper walks with measured steps, his publicist slightly ahead of him, phone already vibrating nonstop. Assistants whisper. A producer murmurs, "That was intense," in a tone that means historic. Bradley nods, polite, distant. His face is calm, but inside, the echo of the conversation keeps replaying. Every pause, every word that landed harder than intended, every look from the audience that felt like judgment or recognition. Joy Behar remains seated long after the cameras cut. She sips her coffee, now cold, staring at the table as if the conversation is still sitting there across from her. One of the hosts leans in. "You good?" Joy nods slowly. "Yeah," she says. "I meant what I said." Then quieter. "And so did he." That night, the internet ignites. Clips flood social media, cut sharp, edited tighter, stripped of nuance. One headline screams that Bradley Cooper was called out. Another claims he stood his ground. A third insists Joy Behar went too far. The same 30 seconds of footage circulate with entirely different captions, each one telling a different story, each one demanding allegiance. Comment sections turn into battlegrounds. "He's right. Fame doesn't cancel humanity." She bullied him. He sounded entitled. She asked the questions no one else will. Why are we defending millionaires? Why are we punishing honesty? The conversation fractures instantly, splintering into ideology, identity, and emotion. Bradley wakes up the next morning to a phone full of messages. Some are supportive. Old friends. Fellow actors. Strangers thanking him for saying things they never felt allowed to say. Others are harsher. Accusations, dismissals, demands that he read the room. He scrolls for a while, then stops. He knew this would happen. Knowing doesn't make it easier. Joy, meanwhile, opens her laptop and sees the same storm. Praise and outrage in equal measure. Some hail her as fearless. Others accuse her of being cruel. She reads an op-ed questioning her tone. Another praising her insistence on accountability. She closes the screen and exhales. This is the job. This has always been the job. But something about this one lingers. Late night shows joke about it. Podcasts dissect it. Body language experts analyze Bradley's pauses. Media critics debate Joy's framing. Every second of that exchange is mined for meaning. People argue not just about what was said, but about what should be allowed to be said. Days later, the audience reaction becomes impossible to ignore. Emails pour into the network. Some angry, some grateful. One reads, "I've never felt seen by a celebrity until now." Another counters, "This is what privilege looks like pretending to be pain." Both are real. Both are valid. Both exist at the same time. Bradley gives another interview, short, careful. He's asked about The View. He pauses before answering. "I think it was an honest conversation," he says. And honest conversations are rarely comfortable. Joy addresses it too briefly during a later episode. "Discomfort doesn't mean failure," she tells the audience. "Sometimes it means you touched something real." The room applauds. Not wildly, thoughtfully. What remains isn't a winner or a loser. It's a question that refuses to settle. Who gets to speak about pressure? Who gets to be vulnerable? Who decides when honesty becomes entitlement? The audience, the real audience, beyond the studio, keeps debating long after the cameras stop rolling. Friends argue over dinner. Commenters type furiously at midnight. Viewers rewatch the clip, searching for proof that their interpretation is the right one. And maybe that's the point. Not resolution, not consensus, but confrontation. A moment where fame, power, empathy, and discomfort collide in full view, forcing everyone watching to interrogate not just Bradley Cooper or Joy Behar, but themselves. Because the most uncomfortable truth of all is this. The conversation wasn't really about them. It was about us. Now it's your turn. What did you see in that moment? Was it honesty or privilege? Necessary pushback or unfair pressure? A celebrity standing his ground, or a host holding the line? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your take. And if you want more explosive, cinematic, behind-the-scenes stories where fame cracks open and the truth spills out, subscribe to Stage View right now. Because the real drama doesn't end when the show cuts to black. It starts when everyone goes home and keeps talking.